In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the idea of tables in HTML. First thing you should do is to plan your table so that you know how many columns you want and which rows or columns will be headlines. Sketching out your table on paper first is a good idea, especially if it's pretty complicated. In this case, it's not terribly complicated, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to show you how I would sketch it out. This table is going to be cost per farads. I want to know how much supercapacitors cost. If I buy a bigger one, will the cost per farad be higher or lower? So with this, I'll have two rows, which are known as headline rows. First row would be cost per farads, and the second row will have three columns in it. And if you have a hard time remembering the difference between rows and columns, well, columns are just like columns in a building. They're vertical, and then the rows are horizontal. So this row has three columns: farads, cost, and cost per farad. And then I've got 6 data points, and these will each have their own row. So there will be a total of 8 rows in my design. So we start out with a table element. And the table element, of course, has an end to enclose the table elements within it. I'm going to create a table row. So every row that you create has to have a TR element. And you can signify headings with the TH element, table heading. And that also has an ending. So let's put in our cost per farad heading. So that's the first row. We go back and look at that. That's our first row there. And we can check it. Let's see if we have something that we can look at. Here it is. Here's cost per farad. Now, it doesn't really look at a table at this point. We're going to add some styling a little bit later. Once I get all my elements in, all the rows populated, then we'll tart it up, as they say. So I'm going to create another table row just by copying the first one. But in this one, I'm going to put farads. And next, I'll put 3 more headings: farads, cost, and cost per farad. So there are 3 table headings here, and each one of these runs along a single row. Next, we'll do another table row. And we'll start putting in our data. And I'm referring to data here in a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to put this over to the side here. So when I've done my table headings, the next element is TD. So most of your rows are going to be TDs. And this is how you put the data in. So each one of these is put in to indicate a different cell. And I'm going to copy and paste and zip this part of the video ahead so it's not going to take too long. Okay, I think we've got the entire table written out. Let's save that and take a look and see what we've got. So it really still doesn't look much like a table. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a thing called a call span. Now, if we were to turn on the border, let's go to our styles and turn on the border so that we can see better. This is what our table looks like now. So I've got cost per farad, which fits into this one column. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to make this cost per farad sit in the center. Effectively, what this means is I'm going to span the entire width of the table. And to do that, I use what's called a call span. So that means short for column span. So let's go to our tables, and in the TH, the table heading, I'm going to put an attribute called call span equals 3. In other words, I want this element to span 3 columns. We'll save it and take a look at it, and that looks a little bit more like it. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make the background color of this heading a different color. So let's put in a style, an inline style equals background color. Okay, let's see how that looks. There, so it's a nice baby blue. I'm going to go back to the CSS and turn off the border. By the way, if you want a shortcut for commenting things, you can go to text and choose uncomment or comment selection. So that really just comments that selection. And Text Wrangler is smart enough to know whether you need the CSS comment or the HTML comment. We'll take a look at this now. Save that. Okay, so it still really doesn't look much like a table. Everything is kind of laid out okay, but things are a little bit strange in terms of the look of the table. So I'm going to go back into styles, and I'm going to create 2 styles, one for table headings. So for table heading, I'm going to put in background color. And I'll do padding 0 pixels, 15 pixels, 1 pixel, and 15 pixels. We'll save that, and then we'll take a look. That looks a little bit better. So the padding that I've done here, 0 pixels on the top, 15 on the right, 1 on the bottom, and 15 on the left, have kind of spaced out both of the table heads so that it looks a little bit more presentable. The next style will be for basic table cells, the TD element. And rather than do the style along one line. I'm going to, because there are a lot of different attributes to this particular style, I'm going to line them up one on top of the other. So the first thing I'm going to do is increase the padding here as well, because it worked very well in the headings. 0, 15, 1, and 15, just like in the headings. And I'll save that and then view it. So it spaced things out a little bit better. Going to do some borders. And I'll actually do a bunch of them: border bottom, border left, and border right. I'm not going to set a border for the top. And then I'll fill these in. So the border bottom will be solid, 2 pixels in width, and it will have F5E CCE. And I'll copy and paste these. Oops. PX. And these will be 1 pixel in width. So let's save that and take a look. That is beginning to look a little bit more like a table. We'll adjust the font size. We'll set the font family. And save that and take a look. And then lastly, I'll align the text to the right. Currently I have things lined up on the left. The data lines up on the left by default, and that's okay for this column, but for this column it would be nice to have the amounts lining up on the right rather than the left, and as well these amounts lining up on the right. So this will set everything to align on the right. And there's our table.